Hey everyone. So there was this incident, I guess, over the weekend that kind of happened, and wanted to dive into it related to Helldivers 2, which I was surprised would have any controversy around it because since its launch, it seems like Helldivers 2 has been really a darling of the, I guess, multiplayer live service world, so to speak. The game was published by PlayStation Studios and developed by Arrowhead Studios. And, I've not played this game myself. I have quite a bit of familiarity with the original Helldivers game where I put maybe 20 or 30 hours into. And this game did look fantastic. However, what kind of missed for me was I don't really play a whole lot of multiplayer games, to be honest. I really liked the first Helldivers because I could play it with a co-op partner on the couch. And so that was kind of my big driving force to get the game. But, all that aside, essentially, kind of two big things have happened with Helldivers 2 in recent memory. One of those being that there was a big patch for the game that came out in which they balanced a few of the weapons. And the community was not very appreciative of a number of developer comments related to their feedback on the patch. And so that was really starting to bubble. But the real boiling point was when all of a sudden players were met, even on Steam and other, I don't know what other PC platform you could play the game on, to be honest, but were met with the need to have a PSN account in order to access the game, even if you were just playing it, again, on your computer, didn't have PlayStation or whatnot. And to my understanding, this was actually something that PlayStation had pushed for as a requirement at the launch of the game. However, Arrowhead and team had pushed back and delayed such an implementation, and it sounded like they didn't really share the expectation with the community on what was going to happen with that going forward, because all of a sudden this happened, and that also meant for a lot of people who were playing the game on Steam, they could no longer even access the game because PlayStation Network is only available in some 70-ish countries or so. And so if you lived in a place like Singapore, I was hearing some user stories through Yongya talking about it, or Ukraine or such, you just didn't have access to the game anymore, even if you had purchased it. I mean, you can't play it anymore. It's not available to you because you don't have a PlayStation Network account. And so, yeah, that was pretty insane. And the game was, reasonably review bombed on platforms, and now on Google search results, it's at like a 6 out of 10. When to all the feedback related to the actual game, seems like a 10 out of 10 multiplayer experience. And so I'm sure the developers were very disappointed with that. They were really communicative online over the last few days to say, wow, I don't know what's going on. We're trying to figure it out and fix it ourselves. And so just kind of an unfortunate situation all around. There's been some apologies distributed across the community from the CEO of Arrowhead, and also the commitment to kind of trying to make things right. And, kind of following this backlash, we had just heard this morning, that Sony, or last night maybe, Sony had said, hey, yeah, we listened to the feedback we've heard from the community, and we are not going to implement this in the game. And so, of course, that's been met by a number of celebrations and cheers. And so for a lot of people who shared their feedback, shared their voice, that seemed to be a really effective outlet for, getting this developer and publisher to really listen to what they were asking for in this instance. And so I'm really happy with that outcome. And so it was cool. And I think all this happened over one weekend. So if you can imagine, in the corporate world, a lot of people are not working on Saturdays or Sundays. And so there was somebody at Arrowhead, there were folks at the PlayStation that were communicating on this fact and coming to a resolution on how to deal with it. And, I'm going to be biased. I'm a PlayStation guy. I have a lot of PlayStation games. I would, first I want to say that this is interesting, I think, from the lens of a lot of games, to my understanding, and if you play PC games and on Steam frequently, you'll probably have a better lens on this whole circumstance. But my understanding is there's a lot of studios, or I guess publishers, who kind of require these log-on things to play their games, whether that's Ubisoft or EA or Epic or Microsoft or so on. These are often requirements found in a lot of these games. And so from the lens of Arrowhead and PlayStation, I'm sure they didn't anticipate this kind of backlash. I'm sure another thing when you think about it is these other services are probably more widely available than it sounds like PSN is around the world, and so of course that would create a lot of disappointment and frustration from people who want to play the game. And another thing to it is I thought that Sony's response was quick, decisive, to the point, and seemed to make everybody really happy and express that Sony was listening to the feedback that they were receiving from the community in quite a timely manner. And there wasn't an excuse, or there wasn't this push for we're just going to keep it as is and you guys are going to have to be happy with it or not. But they actually made a decision and chose to resolve the situation, which in my mind, while it's disappointing something like that would happen, is a nice way for this whole story to end. So that was pretty cool, to say the least. And another thing I always think about is, and when you hear stories like this, something you should think about is the continuity of the conversation around video game preservation. Again, when you buy all of your games digitally, and I've heard the conversation of, well, if you have a physical game, nowadays it's just a license anyway. You don't get anything out of it. But specifically when you buy it digitally, you are really at the whims of the developer and publisher and how they plan to distribute and give you access to the titles that you play. And so this is just another circumstance in which it would be really nice if there was more either community or legal regulation around the access to what you pay for and what you purchase for. Because I think what's most frustrating in this instance is the folks that were in these countries that might have bought the game. And when I hear in the United States often that a $60 or $70 game, or however much Helldivers 2 sells for now, is cheap compared to the price some people pay in other countries, that is disappointing. It is frustrating. And while this was a good resolution, it's something that publishers, developers, the community, regulators should continue to keep in their forefront, part of their mind, like, hey, we should really do something about the preservation aspects of any game, right? Including Helldivers 2 in this circumstance. And so I just wanted to share my thoughts there. It kind of sucks that some form of requirement would be needed in such a fashion, but simultaneously, I think it's good that there was a quick resolution from Sony, and that it was great the community really came together to voice their opinions. And we should always continue to solidify the idea that we need to push for better access and more regulation around consumers purchasing products and having access to the products that they purchase. But anyways, one of the reasons I really wanted to make this video was to share that, yes, this all happened over a weekend, and just want to get your thoughts on how Sony resolved it, how Arrowhead's been handling it. What happens next? I mean, are people going to reverse their ratings and things? In such a way, you've basically destroyed the reputation of your game in a historical sense, because when people go back 5 years from now and they look at Helldivers 2, will they still see that 6 out of 10 there? I mean, I don't know. But it seems like it's a very mixed reception now on Steam and other platforms. And so for a developer who I really enjoyed the first Helldivers game, for them to now be met with such challenges over what was such a successful launch for a game that's acclaimed to be quite fantastic, that's always sad to see. And I always believe in supporting developers, and it seems like the developers are making their best attempt to listen to the community and hear their feedback and work on implementing it. So, all right, yeah, what do you think? Pretty explosive news out of nowhere over the weekend. But as always, I appreciate you watching, and hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks.